Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman, and I want to come on and do a video. And this video is going to be all over the place because I was reading along and I got into footnotes, and then I went off on this rabbit trail. But I don't mind the rabbit trails because usually I find some awesome things at the end of those rabbit trails in those holes, and it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to go through some of those. First, I'd like to thank Professor Anton. I was able to find that book that you recommended, Escape from Evil, by Ernest Becker, and I plan on reading it. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I wasn't. This is the first time I heard of him. Distinguished social theorist and popular teacher of anthropology, sociology, and social psychology. And he also wrote the book The Denial of Death. So this is Escape from Evil. Picked it up $8, Amazon. It's awesome. So thanks, Professor, for that. So you say, Wayman, why are you recording in the closet? I work swing shift, and so wife works that also. So she's sleeping. Living room would be way too noisy for me to do these videos, and but I really miss sitting in front of a bookshelf. Whenever you make a video, you should always sit in front of a huge bookshelf. Makes you look a lot smarter. So I'm thinking I'm almost gonna have to compensate with some glasses if things don't turn around. So that's where the big bookshelf is. Big bookshelves are in the living room, and so I'm here in the closet, but I really need to come out. Okay, getting on to some things. So I talked to Alien Baroque about this already, and some of those other guys who are really good with analytical psychology, and also Ozzy CDA. If you want to jump in on this, he's a really good user on YouTube. We read some books by Jung together last year, and it was awesome studying that with him, and with the help of him reading at the same time, we were able to get through some of that stuff, and so he can comment too. So I guess I had a question, and I think there's something more to the Samson story in Judges 14, and I have a series that I've been doing, Judges for Dummies, and I was getting ready to do a video, but then I seen Robert Graves' footnote, and I had to rethink it. And the problem with stories and myth is that there are multiple interpretations of it and multiple views. That's why I love it. It's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You turn it around and you see the many different sides. But what happens is a lot of these writers, they end up only looking at one side. So you're talking to Jung. Mostly he looks at the analytical psychology. Same thing with Campbell and a little bit with Freud. And then you move into somebody like Walter Burkert, who talks about Greek religion and ritual, ends up saying that the whole thing, is from ritual, and a lot of those ideas were influenced by ritual. And then you come over to Robert Graves, who says, no, Jung didn't know what he's talking about. It's all tribal conflicts and conflicts between societies that these stories came about. Conflicts between matriarchal and patriarchal, asserting itself on one another. And looking at all these views makes it for a real interesting read, definitely. So that's what I've been doing. So I ended up stumbling on the page 270 of Robert Graves' book, The Greek Myths. This is an excellent reference book if you can grab a hold of it. And it's on the title of Aristeas, who was the beekeeper and son of Apollo and Cyrene. And Cyrene, she was slaying some lions one day, and she's a huntress, and she's like, hey, not really for the weaving thing, I'd rather be out in the woods. And Apollo kind of liked that, and he was like, yeah, I want to marry her. And he did. And Aristeas, his problem was his bees were dying. And so he's the son of a god, and he needs to fix it. So his mother, Cyrene, ends up saying, hey, go sacrifice some bulls and 4 heifers and leave a blood libation and leave the carcasses lay and come back in 9 days and see what happens. So on the 9th morning, a swarm of bees arose from the rotting carcasses, settled on the tree, and he captured the swarm and put it into a hive. And the Arcadians now honor him as Zeus for having taught them this method of raising new swarms of bees. So I went to Robert Graves' footnotes on this. He has extensive footnotes all the time. And this is what he had to say about it. His raising of bees from carcasses of cattle is mistold by Virgil. They will have swarmed rather from a lion, which Cyrene killed, or which was killed in her honor. This myth is like that of Samson's bees, which swarmed from the lion's carcass, seems to be deduced from a primitive icon showing a naked woman tussling amorously with a lion, while bees hover above the carcass of another lion. The naked woman is the lion goddess Cyrene, or Hepetu the Hittite, or Anatha of Syria, or Hera the lion goddess of Mycenae, and her partner is the sacred king who is due to die under the midsummer sign of Leto, emblemized by a knife in the Egyptian zodiac. Like Theseus or Hercules, he wears a lion mask and skin, and is animated by the spirit of the dead lion, his predecessor, which appears as a bee. This is springtime when bees first swarm, but afterwards, as midsummer bee goddess, she will sting him to death and emasculate him, which is definitely what happened to Samson in Judges, in the Samson cycles. The feminine emasculates the Samson, Shimshon in Hebrew, man of the sun. So this is what makes me think there's something more to it. You know, I'm putting two together what Graves told me, but I'm thinking even, and we'll get to that, because a lot of these heroes kill lions, even David. So here it is, reading on. Will sting and emasculate him. The lion, which is the sacred king himself, killed, as did Hercules and his friend, or Samson in the Philistine or Sea People, or David at Bethlehem, was one of the beasts which challenged him to a ritual combat at his coordination. So even early on when I read that, before I hit that footnote right there, it sounded interesting to me that it was more than a wedding ceremony that Samson was attending, because the lion comes out from the vineyard or the orchard, and there's this tussle, and it almost sounded like a fertility cult that was happening, or a fertility festival that was happening in the spring. So this is my question to you guys, and this is the text. You can read it. It starts at verse 8 in Judges 14. After a time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. So previous to this, the lion comes out after him when he's going to the city to visit his girlfriend, and he rips the lion in half as it were a kid or a goat. And Samson ends up making a riddle about this at the festival, which appears here to be a wedding festival that the men of the city cannot answer, because he only knows this, and the wife is horrible about it because they threaten her, and he ends up telling her, and of course she ends up telling them, and he loses. And this was all planned by the gods to be a curse to the Philistines. And you see all these things happening in the background. But after a time he turned to take her, going on. Sorry, I got off on that. He took thereof of his hands and went on eating, and came to his father and mother and gave them, and they did eat. He told them not that he take the honey out of the carcass of the lion. So that's the part of the text I was wondering about. What do you guys think about, what would Carl Jung say about that, as far as the lion coming out and attacking Samson in a vineyard, and along with what Graves is talking about. So, sorry I dragged on so much. Hopefully a few of you enjoyed that. Take care, friends, and remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.